Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we've got more weather warnings issued for Saturday, so we're going to see an even more intense area of low pressure moving in with potential for wind gusts as up to 70 or maybe even higher miles per hour through parts of the south and southwest, and we have got a rainfall warning issued as well for it, as it's going to be a really quite intense system. We'll look at the UKV and the arpege, looking at the wind gusts and the precipitation over the next few days. It is going to be pretty abysmal, and the temperatures as well are going to really suffer because of it as well. However, good signs as we head into next week if you want a bit of a change, as we are now seeing some confidence building that we're going to be seeing some warmer or even hotter weather moving in from around the 10th of August, around the middle of next working week. Now, the exact extent of that heat is still yet to be determined, but one thing that is looking very, very likely now is that the winds are going to be wafting up from the south. A warm, or as I said, even hot air mass will move in. Whether it will be a hot and thundery spell, a warm, sunny, dry sort of pattern, or somewhere in the middle, we can't say for certain, as the pressure pattern, or the overall pressure pattern, is still yet to be exactly determined, and of course the longevity of any warm spell is still very uncertain. So very good signs for next week, but we've got to get through the next few days, which do look pretty abysmal from the latest runs. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, which do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So do start on the live radar, a less lively day today, but still a few heavy thundery showers appearing across the southwest here. Again, not too large in size, but relatively slow moving and could be disruptive in a few places. Most of the instability is now across northwest Europe, and the centre of the low is out towards the Baltic Sea now. And we are left in a northerly flow, quite a bit cooler, and generally quite a bit drier though. In sort of the overall air mass is quite a bit dry, so that's why there's not too many extensive showers, but where they do occur across perhaps eastern Scotland, Northern Ireland, western and southwestern England, it will be a little bit horrible in places. Now the temperatures today will suffer because we're in that northerly flow. A few areas getting some oranges, maybe 20, 21 degrees, but most places stuck in the high teens once again. But this is sort of the best we can expect over the next few days, as things are going to deteriorate quite rapidly. And by Saturday, we're going to have some quite wild conditions. Now, we've got a yellow rain warning issue for Northern Ireland and a large wind warning issue for much of Wales and most of southern and southwestern parts of England here, as we're going to see a very intense area of low pressure. I did say in yesterday's video there is the potential for an amber warning to be issued for this. It is touch and go at the moment. As we'll see with the yellow warning in a minute, it has got scope to be upgraded to an amber warning, but that will only be determined tomorrow morning, when the Met Office do update their warnings around 10 or 11 a.m. So we'll have an update on that in tomorrow's video. I did say there's also the risk that it could be named, but we're getting to the stage now where it's almost getting too late to name the system, as the point of naming it is to raise awareness. But regardless with whether we see an amber warning, whether we see it named, or whether the warnings stay as they are at the moment, is going to be very intense and disruptive in places. Now, with the very morning issued from midnight on Saturday morning until midday, and seasonably wet and windy conditions may lead to some travel disruption on Saturday morning. 20 to 30 millimetres widely is possible, and maybe as much as 40 to 60 millimetres in some eastern parts, and 20 to 30 millimetres could fall in just a few hours. And there's also the risk of very strong winds, 30 to 35 miles per hour, 45 to 50 along some eastern coastal areas. But for the rest of the day, luckily, the system will move through, giving all the miserable weather to England and Wales, and there'll be remnants of blustery showers, sunshine, and some very strong winds. High impact, low end of the likelihood scale. So again, this does leave scope for it to be upgraded, perhaps to amber. From the looks of the latest models, I don't suspect there needs to be an amber warning for rain here. When we're looking at amber warning for rain, we're looking at widely 50 millimetres plus. So I don't think that we will see an amber warning for rain here, but it could be upgraded to a rain and wind warning from the looks of the latest models. With a wider wind warning that is issued again from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m, so covering most of the daytime. Unseasonably windy weather will affect parts of the UK on Saturday, leading to a risk of disruption to travel and outdoor activities. Unseasonably windy weather, accompanied by showers or longer spells of rain, will affect parts of England and Wales during Saturday. The highest winds are likely to affect Irish Sea coastal areas from early morning, pushing gradually south and east, spreading inland, so that by the afternoon, English Channel coast will also see some very windy conditions. Widely inland gusts of 35 to 40 miles per hour, with a risk of 45 to 50 across South Wales and South West England. Again, that's inland, 50 to 55 miles per hour widely on coastal areas, and perhaps up to 60 to 65 miles per hour in those exposed coastal areas. And I have seen the risk from some of the models of a 70 or 75. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with that, and again, scope for this to be upgraded. And from the looks of the latest runs, I wouldn't be surprised if this did get upgraded, because the likelihood is increasing by every run, as none of the models have downgraded it significantly. Haven't upgraded it either, but they haven't downgraded it significantly at all in the last 24 hours or so. So the likelihood of widely 60 plus mile per hour winds along the coast is looking highly likely now, potentially even as high as 70. And if that did happen, then we'd be looking at some really quite big disruption, as we have got, as it is summer. People are not prepared for this, especially coastal areas are in summer season, so we'll have a lot of stuff out for holiday makers, things like that. So it could be very, very disruptive indeed, even more disruptive than the system we had yesterday and the day before, with the strong winds, and the system we had a couple of weeks ago back in July, where we did see 50 miles per hour quite widely, but not quite as much as 60 or 70. So definitely scope for this to be upgraded, but we'll have to see through tomorrow morning. If you look at the UKV now, you can see that we've got plenty of isolated showers around today. Again, nothing too huge as the air mass is slightly drier, but still nothing completely bone dry. As we head through tomorrow into Friday, could be some more showers across the eastern part. Again, a bit of a convergence zone setting up here, so most areas are dry, but a few heavy thundery showers in a line there developing across East Anglia, down through Essex, towards Kent, and maybe just nudging into the London area as well. But as we head through Friday afternoon, you can see the weather front arriving for the very intense low pressure system, and that's going to give very heavy rain for Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland through Friday night into Saturday morning, before spreading through all areas through Saturday. And you can see very intense rainfall around the centre of this low pressure, and that's why we got that yellow warning. Again, could be an amber warning upgraded here, but I don't think that's too likely, but there is the possibility. Very heavy rain though, moving through the most of Saturday, giving a really quite horrible day for most on Saturday. Luckily during the afternoon, depending on the centre of the low, there will be some areas that do see a little bit of sunshine, perhaps in the southern half. Other runs, we'll have a look at the arpeggian minute, does bring the low pressure slightly further southwards. And what that means is that rainfall will encompass more of southern England, so it would mean a wetter and cloudier day. But here, a few sunnier breaks, but a few heavy thundery showers breaking out, and this is where we see the strongest winds for inland areas as the low pulls away through Saturday evening, eventually giving dry conditions into Sunday, but still heavy showers around, and then finally into Monday, see another low approach from the southwest. But things are starting to change, as by Wednesday, Thursday, warm or hot air is starting to get wafted up from the south, and we can start to see indications of that change in air mass, even here by the early hours of Tuesday, with some warm air heading up from the southwest. If you look at the wind gusts though, you can see as we head into the weekend, overnight Friday, nothing too substantial, but across southern parts of the Republic of Ireland, could see 40 or 50 miles per hour through Friday night, but it'll really pick up through the early hours of Saturday there. Wind gusts getting as high as 50 to 60 widely for coastal areas around midday on Saturday, and you can see there's some getting up towards the 69 or 70 mile per hour point across southwest England and South Wales inland, 40 to 50 miles per hour, and then see stronger winds behind the low across the channel through the evening, 50 to 60, and inland seeing 40 to 50 quite widely as well as the low pulls away. Into Saturday, the winds do die down, and we're not expecting anything too windy for the days following it. If you look at the max temperatures today, as I said, maybe touching 21 degrees, but mostly high teens. Into tomorrow will be relatively similar, maybe again 21, maybe just nudging a 22, but mostly mid to high teens. Into Saturday is going to be abysmal, really, for many areas, struggling around the low teens or even high single digits for higher ground of northern England under that thick cloud. Again, I won't take these temperatures too much to heart, as they could change quite drastically depending on the exact track of the low. Again, that would move the bands of rainfall and thick clouds. So again, this cooler air could nudge further southwards, but even in the best areas, high teens look the best. Sunday, improvement, maybe high teens, maybe just touching 20 degrees quite widely. Again, pretty poor, but luckily it's a little bit drier. And then into Monday, temperatures starting to recover a little bit more, but still widely high teens or touching 20 degrees. But likely as we head through Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, things are going to increase quite rapidly. If we do now go over to the arpège and have a look at the precipitation, and we'll have a look at the wind gusts as well, if we actually do zoom in on the British Isles here. Again, you could see nothing too crazy over the coming days, but into Saturday, that very intense area of low pressure moves in, and you can see the centre of the low is further southwards, and what this means is that heavier band of rain dominates through parts of the Midlands and southern England, giving heavier rain there and even stronger winds as it does move away. So this gives an even more miserable day for many areas further southwards. Washout conditions, abysmal really here. If we do look at the wind gusts, see nothing too crazy over the coming days. But as we enter Saturday, look at those extremely strong wind gusts on the western and southern edge of the low, getting up to well over 100 kilometres an hour, maybe as high as 110 kilometres an hour. And that's 60 to 70 miles per hour. And you see those winds really dominating much of South Wales and southwest England through Saturday afternoon into the evening, and maybe again very strong winds for many parts of southern England, getting up to maybe as high as 30 or 40 miles per hour, and across the Channel maybe as high as 50 again or 60 miles per hour. So again, very strong winds. Again, we'll be very uncertain exactly how far inland they will come, but really looks like at the moment that southwest England and South Wales are going to be in the bullseye area to see some really intense wind this time of year. And again, wouldn't be surprised if we did see it upgraded to an amber warning for those winds tomorrow. But if you are looking forward to something better, we're now going to have a look at the longer range where things are looking much, much better as we head into next week, with perhaps some warm or hot air arriving. Now we've got the miserable lows moving through, and you can see that intense low pressure system on Saturday moving through. It doesn't look too bad on the zoomed out view, but when you zoom in, very tight isobars on that western southern extent. But as we head into next week, high pressure tries to build in around Tuesday, Wednesday, but it successfully builds in around Thursday, Friday. And we see drier conditions, low pressure out in the Atlantic trying to draw up a southerly wind, and that looks very likely. But this is the area where we do get the uncertainty. Does the high pressure hold on, giving us a warm, dry pattern, or does the low pressure out in the Atlantic push in, giving us more of a thundery, but still relatively hot pattern? Here, the GFS does bring the low pressure in, does give us warm, but very thundery pattern with that. Beyond that, though, high pressure does definitely take more of an influence here, but we're still seeing lows spiral in, which means it will be turning warmer, but there will still be plenty of rainfall and thunderstorms around. Now, if we head back to the middle of next week, you can see the warm air starting to get drawn up from Spain and the Mediterranean, and you can see again getting up to around 15 or even some runs from the 20-degree isotherm getting in by next Thursday, Friday time. It only hangs on for a day or two before the low pressure runs in off the Atlantic, giving us very hot, thundery weather. So it could be very warm from maybe Thursday to Sunday next week before it gets moved away with perhaps a big thundery breakdown. But that hot air is very close by all the way to the end of the run, so it will remain fairly warm. But we have to see exactly what happens with that. As I said, though, it will be a very thundery pattern, this. Then we put on the precipitation here. You can see lots of showers and potentially thunderstorms coming up from the south there on this extended range. And if we do have a look at those 2 meter temperatures, you can see by next Friday, we could see those temperatures getting high up into the mid to high 20s by Saturday, and into Sunday, again, could see very warm conditions. Unfortunately, it doesn't look likely some of these charts aren't loading, but it is looking widely mid to high 20s in this sort of pattern. If you do look at the GM, again, very intense low pressure system coming through on Saturday, high pressure building in during the middle of next week, and wafting up that southerly wind, and the GM goes high pressure dominated, Not completely without the risk of showers, but if we do look at the precipitation, you can see not much across the British Isles by next Sunday, but you can see very warm air is very close by. If we do run back, we don't get the intense hot air in as much as the GFS does, but it would still be very warm in the south, most likely once again looking at mid to high 20s. Again, if we do run it back, we'll be able to see that by next Friday we're looking at, again, mid to high 20s at times. Again, we can only look at the midday and 6 p.m. temperatures. By 3 p.m. it would be a few degrees high. You can see 30 degrees across North France, and we're just about nudging into those mid 20s, maybe high 20s point in the south. Again, we are right on the periphery of the very hot air here. So hot air is heading our way. GEM just not quite letting it dominate all places. So we will have to see what we have in store for that. ECMWF is a bit better. Again, high pressure building in next week, drawing up that southerly wind, has a very intense area of low pressure, but it stays out to our west, at least initially, and kind of skirts around our north. This sort of pattern where low pressure is very close by, but actually doesn't influence us all too much. You can see there is some precipitation in the western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, unfortunately, but most other areas are pretty dry. Look at all that very hot air spreading in, maybe even the 20-degree isotherm just about touching the southeast, and even by day 10 when it does get swept away to a certain extent, it still does remain fairly warm. The 2 metre temperatures by next Thursday are widely low 20s by midday. That's higher than the 3 p.m. maxes we've been seeing recently. And by 6 p.m. again, mid 20s. Overnight temperatures are going to be very high as well, indicating the strength of this air mass. Next Friday, look at that 27 degrees by midday, so widely high 20s there. And maybe by Saturday again, could see warmer conditions, but again, all depends on how quickly that hot air gets swept away. The best way to have a look at this is by looking at the ensembles. You can see the big rise in upper air temperatures next week. Still uncertainty exactly how high they will go and whether they'll get up beyond the 15-degree isotherm up towards the 20-degree point. But the one certainty we do have, it is warming up and it's going to be turning a little bit dry as well. Whether it will be widely low 20s, widely mid 20s, or maybe high 20s, or even touching 30 degrees, yet to be determined, but definitely looking much warmer than it is at the moment and much warmer than anything we've seen over the past couple of weeks. We'll just have to see, as I said, how hot it does get. But the next few days looking very cool and very unsettled. If you look at the 2 metre temperatures, you can see widely ensembles getting up into the low 20s or in mid 20s, some getting towards high 20s or 30 degrees, and this is why I said there is still a lot of uncertainty. Definitely a rise in temperatures, but maybe it's only rise to average or slightly above average, i.e. low 20s, it's touching mid 20s, whether it will be a little bit above average, getting up into the mid 20s or high 20s, or whether it is starting to get well above average, towards the high 20s or 30 degree mark. We will have to see. The ECMWF does support it significantly as well. Again, we are seeing very cool upper air temperatures at the moment and very unsettled conditions, but a big rise in those upper air temperatures with many ECMWF runs going up towards the mid-teens here, which would give temperatures in the mid to high 20s quite widely, and even some runs getting above the 20-degree mark, which would be proper heatwave levels going up towards the low or even mid-30s if that pattern came off. It does coincide with some dry conditions as well, so ECMWF definitely more of a drier ensemble run than the GFS, but just again highlighting the uncertainty exactly how it will play out. So the only certainty we do have is that it is going to be significantly warmer than it is at the moment, significantly warmer than it's been recently, and there is the possibility of it turning a lot warmer, warmer than average, or even getting towards the hot sort of level, i.e. high 20s, maybe 30 degrees. But anyone saying exactly what the temperatures will be next week, exactly how hot it will be, is not looking at the ensembles correctly, as there is still a lot of scope. It is, though, looking above average, which is one very good positive. But in the meantime, we do have to get through the next few days where it is going to be pretty disruptive. We've got this big storm system moving in on Saturday, which is going to be pretty horrible. And I hope everyone, especially in the southwest, across South Wales, Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, does stay safe and does take the necessary precautions for this system. And of course, I'll update you tomorrow on any changes to those weather warnings. We'll see upgrades in those warnings or changes in their location. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.